What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of What's Your Story? Podcast co-hosted by me and my good friend Mike Lindstrom. I'm Scott Leese. That's Mike Lindstrom. What's going on, Mike? Happy almost 4th of July.
I know, man. It's that time. I can't get anybody to answer the phone this last week, so and you and I were working during the 4th of July, so no, it's good. It's I finally get to relax and enjoy some time. It's something that hopefully we can actually talk about. I've been thinking about that life balance thing. That's a big aspiration. Maybe I get a little life balance here in the next few days.
Well, maybe let's start right there. It's 4th of July week. Today's July 3rd. There's a lot of people who, because 4th of July falls on a Friday, just found a way to say, I'm just going to take this whole week off. The Monday was the 30th. I took the 30th off. That was my birthday, though, so maybe that was a good excuse. But maybe people worked on the 30th, end of the quarter, end of the month, and they're like, you know what? This week is going to be tough. I'm out of here. And a lot of parts of the world, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, Scandinavia takes off, I think, the whole month of July, basically, right? But where we live, you're kind of looked at a little sideways, like, oh, you lazy sack, like, you're not doing much, whatever. And I have that guilt. I mean, I felt guilty taking my birthday off. I can't get rid of it. But my kids just got back from Scandinavia and Denmark and Sweden and all, and they have a totally different philosophy. And I know you're headed to Scandinavia, so How were you think about that balance of it's a holiday week, but I've got to grind still a little bit. I got to, put some effort out there. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, well, I got a couple quick things on this one. This is a lot to unpack, but I'll hit this quickly. So my son, Rhett, he's going to go his junior high school. He's doing the historical Ignatian Camino walk in Spain. They start in the Basque region of Spain. Wow. He's doing the 3/4 version. The big one's like a whole month thing. You're doing 12, 15 miles a day all the way south into Barcelona. So his is modified because they're high school students. But he's been averaging 12 or 15 miles per day. He's now done with the Camino part, the walk. So they're cruising into Barcelona for the next few days. So he's out of town, and we miss him. It's the first time abroad by himself, which God bless. I didn't do that till I was in college. So here he is as a high school student. But here's what's funny, Scott. When they were planning this trip, the teachers, and it's a Jesuit school, Brophy, so they talk about, the Brophy way. There's certain ways, the principles of the schools and the Jesuit way. But they talked about this to the parents and said, hey, we're going to be in Spain during the 4th of July, and we have to remember where we're at. We are not in America. We have to honor host in the home country. So they basically recommended, be understated, don't bring your red, white, and blue, and be that American over in Spain on 4th of July, because frankly, in Spain on the 4th of July, it means nothing to them. It means
nothing. Yeah.
So, but I read this and I thought, wow, that's really interesting. Like, these teachers and these leaders, even at the local level, understand the dynamic sometimes of who we are as Americans on the global scale and how we're perceived. So, which I understand. I totally get that. But yeah, you're right. I'm getting him back from Spain this week, and then 2 weeks later, we're going to Scandinavia, and I'm excited. Denmark, I lived to at 93. I studied abroad international politics at the University of Copenhagen, so I get to see my host family. So I've been reading up on the Danish ways and all the things that have changed since there. But I tell you, they live a very different life. I mean, they're happy people, and I can't wait for my family, especially my teenage sons, to see the major difference between work, grind. Like, Danish people are hardworking people in their own right, but the word grind and work on holidays is not super prominent in the Danish culture.
Yeah. What a cool experience to be able to go back and visit your host family from when you were a kid.
So my host father is named Ole Olsen, which basically is like John Smith in the United States as a Dane.
It sounds so much cooler, though.
So Ole Olsen and Karen, my host's mother, is Norwegian. So when we lived together for 6 months in this home, it was always at dinner, the Norwegian way versus the Danish way. And by the way, the American way never came into conversation in the 90s because, well, why would it? We're violent people. We're overweight people. We're depressed and medicated people. And this is in 93. So I can't imagine what I'm going to hear in 2025 listening to two Dane and Swede in their late 80s talking about me as an American.
Yeah. Do you think this is kind of a nature versus nurture question a little bit? Like, were we just born this way? Genetically, it's like in our makeup, or did we become this way because we grew up here? Like, if you were born in Copenhagen to that host family, would you have a totally different approach to things? So how you grew up and where you grew up and how you were raised totally changes you? Or is it just like genetic? Nope, Mike was hardwired to go, go, go. No, it doesn't matter where he was born.
Yeah, there is plenty of studies on this, man. They're well before both of our times. The truth is, you're genetic. You're still a human being, right? The skin bag you live in, that's the human. The being is how you show up. The being part of it is going to be based off where you're born into. I mean, you could take someone who is purely American genetically in every way, shape, and form, and they're born from the time of birth in the Danish culture, and that's all they know. They will become Danish. I mean, that's the way they speak to each other. The way, not I don't mean just the language, but the way the polite, the way they eat dinner, the way they're communal, and you're raised in that. I mean, you have to remember, man, between birth and 5, you don't have a ton of memories as an adult, but that's where you're forming. So all of the being part, which is behavior, it starts to become what you are around you. So I hear what you're saying though, but I being in that culture and who they be and how they behave, it's pretty admirable. Dude, the way they treat people with respect and the love that they give, and they're so communal.
When you try to pull, well, if you try to pull some of the way and the being from some of these other cultures and places, if you try to pull that in and live that way, especially if you're over there, do you ever feel like you're just faking it? Are you worried at all that somebody's like, oh, okay, Mike, you went to Denmark for a week and now you're a totally different freaking dude, and get hell about that? I wonder about that. Sometimes I don't know if it's not really imposter syndrome. It's just like, is this guy being fake? Is he real? Is this really who he is? Or is this just like a trend that he's on because, he just got back from there?
I think it's both. I mean, when I came back from 6 months of living there, I lived it. We had to predominantly speak mostly in Danish because we had to learn Danish before we went there. I mean, everyone speaks English over there, so they want to practice their English on us just as much as we want to practice their Danish on them. But I came back and I had a different perspective on dinner. I'll give you a perfect example is dinner. Like when you go to my grandmother's house, which in Danish means mormor, which is mother of mother. What grandmother is mormor. So we go to mormor's house, and it's a Danish dinner. Everyone makes, it's homemade. There's no, heated up from the store, a Costco food. And whatever you got on your plate, you ate it. And if you ever wanted seconds, you waited till everybody was completely done at the table before you went in for seconds. And when you got your first, you took a conservative amount. We in America, we just pile it up and go in for second. I mean, it blew me away when I came home. Like, wow, we are not good eaters. We are disrespectful. We take on too much. We throw away scripts. They don't throw away food, man. I'm telling you, they eat what you get. And that thing never changed in me. That is, of course, I'm still back to the American way, but for a good year, coming off of that, I had more of that Dane in me. So I think you're right. But I got to ask you just came back from a trip. You were gone for a while. Australia and some of the places you've now seen it. How did you come off of that? What did you experience with it? And what did you come back with? What was the takeaways you had?
Australia did not feel that much different to me than being home in America. I think I felt I had a sense of, wow, I'm really far away. And people don't maybe get the news here as fast as elsewhere. Not so much news, but more like trends of things. You talk about some sales tactic or go-to-market play, and they're like, wow, that's really interesting. And I'm like, oh shit, that's, people have been doing that for 3 years already over here a little bit. So Australia, and I was in the Sydney area primarily. It could have been any major city in America. When I go to New Zealand, big difference, huge difference. I mean, I feel like I'm at the end of the world, edge of the world. I mean, there's very few people around. I mean, I'm going to some of the most famous surf breaks in the country, and there's 2 other people out. And I'm like, am I lost? Am I in the right place? No, this is how it is. Very sort of, your life is intertwined with nature and the land and the respect for it. That's what it felt like to me. Even people who lived in Auckland, the major city, were dying to get out of the major city on the weekend, and just go out there. Very active cultures. That's a big difference, actually. I was staying in Bondi Beach in Australia, going back to Australia now. This is a difference. There was hundreds of people on the beach at 5 a.m. walking the dog, running, doing yoga, whatever. I mean, it was dark out still. Yeah. I'm like, nobody's doing that at home. I went and played golf with a couple guys. One guy was like, yeah, I just finished a 10K run before we got here. I'm like, you went running before we decided to go play golf? Another guy's like, I'm going to the gym when I get back. I'm like, oh, you're going to go lift weights after we just played golf. We would be like, golf, that's four plus hours. I'm gassed, So very fit kind of mentality, physically active mentality. New Zealand, in tune with nature, much slower, very respectful. They don't have the sort of like self-promotion kind of culture. Very uncomfortable. I mean, I got a lot of questions from New Zealand, people asking me like, how do you get comfortable sharing content on LinkedIn or asking people for a referral fee? It is not part of the culture to get referral fees in New Zealand. So, differences like that in life, in activity, and even a simple business thing like a referral fee, that blew my mind. They're like, I can't ask, if I sent you a piece of business, Mike, I'm just doing it. I can't send you a piece of business with the expectation that, you're going to give me 10% or something like that. So yeah, there's big differences for sure.
It's and I always go back to, and I was reading that you and I were talking off camera, this book. I don't mind sharing it. I have no interest in the book itself other than I'm reading it. It's called The Art of the Danish Living, and just because I'm going on this trip, and oh my gosh, there's so many studies in here, worldwide studies in here, and one of the things they talk about in here is the work hours, for example, and I'll let you guess. So here we go. The question is, this is average hours worked per worker per year. Now, I know that's a hard number because we don't think that way. So I want you to think in terms of a work week. Instead, I'll break it down.
I would say 30.
Okay, 30. So
I would guess 30.
What country do you think is the highest? Now, this is average hours worked per worker each year. Per week, which country in the world has the highest?
I'm going to say China because I think they have 6-day work week.
The answer is Mexico.
Really?
2,128, and that basically comes down to a 40-hour work week. Remember, this is per worker, so that's a lot. Even the average worker, even like you think like somebody who's part-time and a full-timer, so that's 40, okay? Now, the lowest, that's one of the points of the book, is Denmark. Denmark, they have a total of 1,363 a year, which breaks down to 26-hour work week.
Wow, that's even less than I guessed. Wow.
6-hour work week. So yeah, I mean, you go back, if you go minus at the top, you got Mexico at the top, Korea, United States number 3, New Zealand number 4, Australia 5, Italy 6. I mean, this is crazy. You read these statistics and you realize, man, we think we do work hard in this country, but you go over to Denmark, Sweden, Norway, a completely different paradigm. So I'm excited about the trip, man.
It makes me think, let's say we only had 26 hours a week to work. Let's call it 5 hours a day, right? So your work day, Mike, is now 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., let's say.
Amazing.
What would you have to do differently to be as productive, to earn what you're used to earning? Do you even think it's possible?
Yeah, I think the biggest paradigm shift for me would be my belief system, because I always, I say beliefs drive behaviors. So if I'm going to get that new behavior, call 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours, even 6 a day, truly, my beliefs would have to change around sleep. Now, I know I posted this last week, the book that I read way back, and you've asked me this question on the podcast, The Shark Never Sleeps. That's an old belief I have. I believe you have to get sleep. So, but I believe maybe my sleep pattern would be different. So I'd have to maybe tweak my day. I'd go to bed maybe earlier, and I'd have to get up a little bit earlier. I'd be more productive in a work setting. But I think what I would do is in those extra hours that I'm getting back, that I'm not working, I would be doing creative things. And I believe creative things make me happy. Writing, journaling, just being on here with you, to me, is not working. I actually enjoy sitting here right now having a conversation with you. It just happens to be the cameras are rolling. I don't see that as work, even though another person might say, nah, Mike, you and Scott are working. That's 1 hour of work that you did because you're making money doing it. But if I said the paradigm shift would have to happen, but I have to be honest, my man, I think I'll drive myself crazy. Because I don't like to just sit around and do nothing. I get fidgety. I don't like to be alone by myself with myself. I'm not the kind of guy that goes on a silent walk retreat in the woods for 2 hours. So I think it's going to be a big shift.
But you'd have to. But you'd have to find ways to fill your day so you didn't go insane.
I'd find new hobbies. New hobbies.
That's what it is. That's what it is. It has to be new hobbies. It has to be new activities, right? If it's, I'm pulling numbers out, but if it's 8 to 1 every day, there's your 5 hours. What do you do every afternoon? Do you go play golf? Do you go play tennis? Do you go run? Do you go cycling? I don't know what you do,
Well, I think that's the thing about when you look at the studies. I mean, the Danish culture, just picking on the Danes because that's what the book's about. That's what they spend a lot of time in nature. They spend a lot of time riding bikes. They're spending a lot of time doing physical things that we don't do. I do remember that when I lived there. Like my host family happened to have an automobile. Now, to buy a car over there is very, very expensive. Now, at that time, let's say it was 93 when I lived there. My host father was in Parliament. So he was like a senator in the United States. Very, I wouldn't say famous person, but he's a very notable leader in their country.
The public figure of some sort.
Public figure, absolutely. Yeah. So he had public figure money, but he also had a little bit of notoriety. He had a car, one car for a family, and it was a Volvo, a 1988 Volvo, 5-year-old Volvo. And he was kind of like a Mac Daddy because he had a car and it was a Volvo and it was not a super old car. So that was just a thing you just didn't have or do. You walk 200 yards to the stop to get on the bus, to take it to the train station from Ganløse down to Copenhagen, 45 minutes. That was just a normal day. So you walked to bus to train. Now imagine the United States. You're like, that's it. I'm getting a car. No way I'm going to walk that far, get on a bus, and train into work.
Yeah, or you're just saying, I need a different job. I'm not taking that job. The commute is too much. Yeah.
And you're only doing it 26 hours a week to work.
Yeah.
So, it's one thing if you spend all your time down in Copenhagen 100 hours a week, that little bit of a commute doesn't really matter to you anymore. But I'm really excited to come back. So the first cast we do after I get back, I think will be interesting.
Yeah. I'm thinking about this public figure bit. And I wonder how over time our experience and interaction with the hate or backlash that comes with being a public figure has changed and evolved, if at all. It'd be a good question to ask him. What was it like being a public figure and having to read the news or listen to the radio and get backlash and everybody's going, Ole is an idiot and doesn't know what he's doing, right? And we deal with backlash in a totally different way and arguably on a larger scale, frankly, because you go stand in front of 1,000 people and deliver a speech. Okay. But you post content and you're in front of hundreds of thousands of people who just rip you to shreds. It seeps in, man. It's a different experience now for me than when I first started.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious if your experience with backlash, hate, whatever you want to call it, has evolved or changed, or you've been steady in how you deal with it the whole time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a couple paradigms to draw from, and I'm going to bring this super topical because of what just happened in the news the last couple of days. Charles Barkley, who's I would call him a friend. I mean, we don't hang out together. He lives in Scottsdale. He goes to the same club or gym I go to. I've been in the steam room with him, not to be creepy, but we, guys have an open conversation. You're in the steam room, you got a towel on, you talk about life, politics, his new contract with TNT or whatever. And this had to be 8 years ago when Charles and I had this conversation 101 in the steam room. And I was asking him, Charles, why are you not on Twitter? I mean, come on, man. You got a voice. Everyone knows who you are. You love you. Whatever you say, it's funny. And he goes, oh, man. He goes, you put that cell phone in my hand at Twitter. That's trouble. That's trouble. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say what I'm going to say. I'm going to have producers get breathing down my neck. I'm going to have Maureen, my wife, get mad at me. I don't need that thing in my hand, period. Now, if you look, it's only been in the last year and a half that he got on social media. He does have that phone in his hand.
He is now.
He is now. He's on Instagram. He's on social media. I think, and haven't asked him since then, but I have a belief a lot of it has to do with his branding outside of the TV show. They probably put some pressure on him on that. But I've watched him. I've observed him online and how he does it. But here's the thing about Charles that I think is interesting in this question. When you see him around town in Phoenix or at the club or in Scottsdale or at the golf course at Gainey or wherever he's at, he doesn't have a bodyguard. He doesn't have a posse. He's hanging out by himself, and he just makes himself accessible.
Yeah.
And his point, he's been on the record on this. This is where Tiger Woods missed. Tiger made himself completely inaccessible, and that caused problems. So anytime he was just human, they're like, "Oh my gosh, Tiger Woods! Can you believe that?" Charles Barkley does something, which he's done, and they're like, Charles being Charles. He was partying there for the New Year's, or he made a comment, or whatever happened. No, everyone wrote it off because he's human. Now you take that paradigm of being private versus just being public and no big deal, and now you put social media on it. Here's why I'm bringing this up to current. Puff Daddy. P. Diddy, right? He's
Yeah.
just got off on a bunch of charges. He's probably going to still face some prison time. I saw last night they're interviewing, of all people, Suge Knight from
They're
prison.
Oh my
They're
God.
interviewing Suge Knight from prison, and they said, "What's your advice to Diddy right now from prison?" And he basically said, "Look, people will get over this in no time flat. He's fine. Go be with
Wow.
your family. Go be with your kids. Work on yourself. People are going to forget this in no time flat. And then you go back to making your music because people are going to forgive you anyway." And I
Wow.
thought, you know what? He's right, because he's done it. He's been through it. He's in prison and he knows it. So
Yeah.
people don't care. We make this thing so big in our head, Scott, that,
Yeah.
oh my God, somebody didn't like it, or somebody posted some comment the other day. No one gives a shit. No one gives
Yeah.
a shit. Move on. Move on to the next.
It's so true and so smart to do, yet a little bit tricky still for me. I'm not gonna lie. I get a negative comment on something, and I'll be thinking that person even remembers or knows what they've said. They probably haven't. They probably don't. You know? They probably don't even remember tomorrow, like whatever I said in my video that they told me was dumb or whatever. And I'm over here thinking about it. It's like, that's the worst thing that I could do, actually. And when my kids just got back from their trip, they look at my social content and stuff like that, and they're real curious about my Instagram growth of late. And they got home and they said to me, "Dad, whatever you do, don't look at your comments." And I was like, "Shit, am I getting destroyed in the comments or something like that?" And they're like, no, just don't. Like, you know, it's not worth it. It doesn't help. You know, they're like teaching me about the algorithm and stuff like that. There's nothing good can come from it, basically. And I'm like, you know, good for them, man. They're better at that than I am at 48 years old. They know to ignore that shit.
Yeah.
So good for them.
Yeah. Well, now see, you did the worst thing possible. You said, "Don't do this, don't do this, don't do that." What's the brain do? It wants to do it.
Yeah. Immediately wants to do it. Yeah.
No, but you're right, though. It's the whole thing of, don't think of red, don't think of red, don't think of red. What do you think of red? So when your family or your loved ones say, "Don't do this," there's a natural curiosity. I think the bigger play, and I think it's absolutely true. I'm actually, I'm still reading on Mel Robbins' book, The Let Them Theory.
Yep.
And I'm almost done with it. I've been listening to an audio, and I'm glad that watching her podcast and everything she's done over the years and watching her career, that she really had this super honest transformational realization. It's like, you know what? I've been holding on to control and my kids and way too much. I just need to let it go. And I've been thinking about that more and more. I have a different phrase that I use in my mind, but absolutely, when you have your teenagers at this juncture of their life saying, "Who cares? They're going to make comments. They're going to hate. They're going to do whatever they're going to do." And I hate to say, Suge Knight being a brilliant guy to quote here, but he's right. People are going to forget and forgive, and they're going to move on. You can think of countless famous people where you thought, "Oh man, here's no way."
The news cycle moves on. Everybody forgets.
Right. That's exactly right.
Something else will happen, and everybody will mostly forget in.
And
X
that's
amount of time.
that should be our phrase, you and I, right? On to the next. On to the
Yeah,
next.
on to the next.
On to the next.
Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah.
good stuff, man. Hey, I was thinking about today a little bit, just to switch it up a little bit. I'm always thinking about tough questions. It's like the power of questions. It's one of my things, being a good question asker. And I was thinking about some of the stuff that we've talked about more on the personal side. And I was thinking about a moment in life for you. I call them defining moments. It's either vivid to you or it stands out to you that was like a pivotal thing. And as a 48-year-old now, you look back and maybe even more and more, you go, maybe this was a big deal at 12 or 16, but the older you get, that defining moment stands out higher and higher. And it really shaped the trajectory of who you are as a person. What's that thing for you? I have a bunch of like what I call peak moments, but I never really asked you that one big or two big life moments that helped change that were in your younger years.
Well, the first one that really stands out is probably my parents splitting up and the impact that had, and living in two houses and whatnot. I think I was maybe 12 years old, something like that. And it was a amicable, situation. They get along great today. Yeah, they separated, and that has impacted me and still kind of impacts me, which is kind of weird to say out loud, but I know that was a defining moment, and having to kind of rethink and question my worldview about what's normal, what's safe, what's stable, what the hell are relationships, how does this happen? That's one. Certainly my illness is a huge one. Getting really sick at 23 years old, fighting like hell in the hospital for 4 years to survive all of that. That is an absolutely critical one. kind of an obvious one. And then, a few years ago, divorce for myself. That's a big one. So those are the first three that come to mind. I could dig not too deep and come up with lots of other ones though. Like this one time in Little League, I came up to bat 4 times and I hit the center field fence on a fly all 4 times in a row. Never hit it out. Hit the fence 4 times, 3 triples and 1 double. And my dad and my mom were not there. And this is not to rip on them. They were there for probably 95+% of my sporting activities, but they weren't there for that one time. And I cannot stand missing my kids' athletic events now. They've been playing sports for 10 plus years now. And it drives me nuts because I'm always thinking like, I'm going to miss a moment, And sure enough, a couple months ago, my older son, who plays defense, center back on the soccer team, he never has chances to score unless it's like a corner kick. Well, he went up for a corner kick, he headed it, he put it in. It's like his first goal the whole year, and first goal in God knows how long. And I fucking missed it, right? That's a defining moment for me and like a core memory that impacts how I think about parenting and balancing my time now. So that's a good question, man. Yeah. Three kind of obvious ones for me at the surface. And then there's plenty of other defining ones, beneath that. I can think of another one real quick, if I could tell this story. Right before I started my freshman year of college, so I had just turned 18. I graduated high school at 17. I was a little bit young. So I go off to college. I'm playing college soccer. We're having 2-a-days all summer long. We're gearing up for the first game of the year. And like 2 days before the first game of the year, I get a phone call. Not on a cell phone. This is like on the pay phone outside of my dorm room, right? And somebody grabs me, and it was either my mom or my dad. And they're like, hey, we have to tell you something. There's been an accident. And what happened was about 5 of my high school soccer teammates were in a horrific car accident. One guy died. Other ones were in ICU. And obviously I was devastated. They're younger than me by 1 year. And this kid Keegan didn't make it. And they were like, they're just going to be a ceremony and a service. And it's on whatever the day was. And that day was the day of my first ever college soccer game. And they're like, what are you going to do? Do you want to come home, basically, or you want to stay and play the game? And I didn't know what to do. It's my first time away from home. I'd been away from home for 6 weeks, maybe. School hadn't even started yet, just practicing. And I thought, well, I don't need to go home, And I was thinking, people say all the time, what would so-and-so want you to do? They want you to stay and play or whatever. It's such a cliche. But I did have the thought. I can't deny it. I did have the thought, like, what would these guys want me to do? But I also thought, what are all my friends going to say about me? What are they going to think that I didn't show up? What's that going to mean and all this kind of thing? So I decided to stay. Okay. I decided to stay and play the game. We're playing the game. It's a top 25 team in the nation. My first ever college game. We're at home. We're winning 1-0. There's like 5 minutes left in the game. And I get called for a foul in the box. And I give up a penalty kick. And I'm going, this can't be happening. Right? Like, just lost my friend. It's my first ever college game. I'm starting as a freshman. And I fuck up and make this mistake. And they're going to make it, and we're going to tie instead of win, right? Sure enough, they score. I'm getting heckled like crazy from the fans. You idiot, da-da-da-da-da. I had super long hair at the time, like halfway down my chest, big beard. They're calling me every, hippie Jesus name in the books, all this kind of stuff. And I'm just hearing it in my ear. A couple minutes left in the game. We kick off, get the ball downfield, and I'm playing fullback, just at the very back. The ball kind of pops out, and I run onto it from like 30 yards out, and I hit a missile into the corner of the net, and I score. And I sprint, Mike, to the crowd where the guys were yelling at me. And I just stand right in front of them like this. I don't say a word. I just stand just like this. And the guy reaches his hand out and shakes my hand like, well done. And then I get tackled by my teammates, and we won 2-1.
That's great.
And this is like, it's an interesting defining kind of moment because like, I'm just a kid. I just lost a teammate. I have 2 other teammates that are in ICU, 2 others that are banged up. Yeah. All of my friend group, is at home, and I'm just kind of there by myself. And I am doing well. I fuck up, and inside of minutes, I focused somehow enough to have this like moment of brilliance and scored the game winner. And afterwards, after the game, the reporters, I'm thinking, they're going to come talk to me like for sure, right? They ignored me. They went and talked to the coach, and they went and talked to the kid who scored our first goal. They never came to talk to me at all. I never got credit. I never got the glory, whatever you want to call it. I feel like I got robbed of that a little bit, right? And so from this point on, I'm now like, I have a chip on my shoulder. I'm never going to get acknowledged. I'm never going to get credit. Doesn't matter how good I am. Doesn't matter what I do. For some reason, I'm going to get overlooked. And I have to be okay with that and knowing that I did what I needed to do and that my contribution mattered. And this is like a core defining moment and story that says, you're probably thinking this actually says a lot about Scott right now. Yeah. And it's true.
Absolutely.
It's true. It does. Yeah. I think I've only told that story one other time on a podcast, actually.
Well, that's great. You know, it goes back to one of my favorite quotes in any of the work that we do. And you've heard me say this a million times, that nothing in life means anything except for the meaning that you give it. Right? Yeah. That's a choice.
Yeah, it's one of the things, probably the thing I remember most that you've ever said to me is that sentence.
And I say it to myself all the time as a reminder, because when you're an adult looking back on a life event, you can't change that event that took place. That's a killer story. That's a positive outcome. And that event made it mean something at that young age, because that's all you knew at that moment. Now you fast forward your clock and you go, why do I still make it mean that? I have a choice to make that mean something different, but I still hold on to that belief because what? It makes me competitive. It makes me keep my edge. It makes me not get comfortable, right? And these beliefs drive you in everything you do. So I always love asking that question of people. And it kind of goes back to what we talked about, the theme. What's your story? When you find out what people's story is, what you're really finding out, another way of saying is, give me your top 5 peak moments in your life that defined who you are today. And now I know who you are, because I can deduce backwards. Once you tell me, that at 18, at 12, at 5. Okay, that's all I need to hear. I can now figure out who you are
now it makes sense
as a 48-year-old because of the meanings that you gave those things, and probably how you continue to hold on to those things moving forward. That's a big thing, man.
Yeah. It ties in perfectly to our theme, and the name of the show, right? What's your story? Just like you were saying.
And I can't wait.
You hear people tell their story, and it's like, Mike makes sense now.
That's right. And that was going to remind people that watch this, these episodes are just you and I.
Yeah.
And what we're going to have from time to time, where we have guests, non-guests. But imagine we start getting I can't divulge the guest list that we have right now that we're looking at, you and I. Can you imagine looking at this list going, I can't wait to ask this guest this question.
Yeah,
what's that thing? Yeah, what's that thing that happened to you between 5 and 12? What happened to you that defined you in baseball or in your acting career or as a CEO, as a leader that you still hold on to as a 60-year-old millionaire because that thing happened to you at 12? It's important to get those things out of people so you can have a deeper appreciation of who they are today.
Yeah, and I think equally important for people listening and watching to be able to apply that lens and that filter to themselves, so they can ask that question of themselves, maybe to better understand themselves, and then understand the people around them that are closest to them, and understand the world around them, and hopefully, take that information and that knowledge and move forward with it and do some good things and be happier, healthier, more productive, more successful. And that's what we're here for, try to help everybody out. So
it's powerful. That's one thing I would say real quick on this, so I'll tie it up on that point is parenting questions come at me, and the one advice I always give parents, and I'm no parenting expert by any stretch, but I will say this one thing: just be a great meaning shaper to your kid. That kid is doing the same thing. He's not making the team. He got a bad grade. Whatever you think's happening, he's doing the same thing you and I did. They're going to remember that moment forever. Help them shape that meaning in that moment, so they're not holding on to the angst. They're not holding on to the jealousy. They're not holding on to the trauma of what that 12-year-old or 16-year-old event is. So being a good meaning shaper as a parent is such a powerful skill.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Good talking to you, Mike. You have a good 4th of July weekend. We appreciate everybody spending some time with us today, and we'll see y'all next time on What's Your Story?
Absolutely, man. Good holiday.
All right. Cheers, everybody. Bye.
Peace.